Welcome back to Picton's Northern Star Floaty McBoaty thing. This episode is a bit of a mix, or an eclectic mix, as I like to affectionately think of it, around solar power. Some research I needed to do to sort out the solar power that I'm actually relying on to keep the Housebank battery system charged. Now, I was getting quite worried about the fact that collectively the Housebank battery was down to around 21 point something volts, less than 12 volts, slightly more than maybe 10 volts, 11 volts for each battery, which isn't right. I didn't want to destroy them. So a bit of research online, a bit of work, I think we've solved that problem. The other issue is, obviously, I don't think that the engine alternator or the alternator is charging the engine bank sufficiently, other than keeping it topped up to a little over 24.6 volts collectively. It's not flying over or trickling over into the Housebank system. But we'll work on that one problem at a time. Rome wasn't built in a day. Back down to the boat here, more issues, more dramas. The kick-off Housebank now is down to 21.5 volts, so that means each battery is now discharged to 10.7 volts. The solar panel is not charging it at all. There's an issue there. The regular alternator is only charging at about 15.9 volts. It should be charging at least 29 or 30 as far as I'm aware. There is no, or appears to be no, interconnection between the engine starting bank and the Housebank, so that the engine tops one bank up than the other. The cables for the windlass are too thin, are too small. I had a friend come down who's right into electronics, electrics, marine stuff, installing instruments and running new wires. He looked yesterday and decided, in his view, they should be at least twice the size that they are, and what's happening now is creating a huge amount of resistance and heat, and has probably been what's damaged the potentially, or caused heat around the back of the voltage overthrow switch there, whatever you call it. Sorry, I'm a bit of a brain fart moment. So anyway, so I'm just down to have a look. So a number of problems, yet again. Nothing's easy, so I'm just going to work my way through. I'm going to take the solar panel off the roof, tip it upside down, have a look at the specs. Murray suggested I have a look at the connections. There may be corrosion in the connections as to why it's not working properly. If it's not that, then obviously the panel might be shot, but the panel looked to be in reasonable condition. So we're going to start with that. We're going to start with some testing. I thought I'd make a little bit of footage on the way, and we'll see where we end up. So I can see probably it's going to involve a purchase of an appropriately new panel, and taking off the alternator and getting that sorted at the appropriate location in town. So let's see how we get on. Right, they said 21 volts. That's pretty darn bad, to be honest. These batteries are going to be stuffed. I'm going to need to actually probably take them home and put the charger on them. I can't afford to replace new batteries. Now the engine starting bank at 24.83, so that's pretty good, to be honest. So obviously the alternator is actually charging those. I don't quite understand how that's working, because unless I'm testing from the wrong position on the back of the alternator. Who knows, I might just have to get in and have a little bit more of a look more closely. And that shows a 21.5. Now, 21. Have you ever noticed that the right size spanner, the right size tool, or the correct tool is never on board the boat when you need it? You either have to drive all the way home to get it, or try and make do. Designed to make sure that everything takes 10 times longer than it needs to be, and is more frustrating than it should be. Anyhow, that's what I find anyway. I think it's a great conspiracy, to be honest. So here we have the Pmax, which is how many volts the panel should put out under ideal test conditions. The VMP is the voltage at maximum power. So you can see the VOC is the open circuit voltage, which is the maximum number of watts it'll produce without a load on it. So you can see it's an 80 watt panel, and it's only capable of producing between 17 volts and 21 volts. That's far too small, and it's not suitable and not appropriate for a 24 volt system. So there's a problem. That's only a very small panel, and I'm asking it to charge 24 volts. It's actually charging over its capacity. And I was testing it, although it was set 21 volts, so I was operating at maximum, and there's no way that's going to keep those two batteries topped up. Might keep one 12 volt battery topped up, but certainly not two. So, decision time. I retain the panel and retain the setup and use it on one of the 12 volt batteries, or I bring down the other marine battery that I've got there and wire that up in parallel with one of these as part of the 24 volt system, or I keep it as a separate standalone and I charge that up, or I put a set of alligator teeth on it just to charge one battery at a time, or I remove it completely, the panel completely, and I go and buy a new panel that's capable of doing the job. So I'm actually starting to think that potentially that might be the best way forward. Go and spend maybe $250. I think there's a panel on sale at Burnsco that would do the trick. Just bite the bullet, go and get a decent panel, put it on. Might have to replace the cables through and in, or no, I don't know. And hopefully that'll keep both of those batteries well and truly up where they should be, and that will prevent me having to muck around with all sorts of issues around swapping one to the other smaller panel. So it would just seem to me that that would be the most common sense way forward now. So I might pop down to Burnsco, maybe Odie's if they're open, see what they've got. Alright guys, we'll see you soon. Okie dokie, we just bought a 24 volt panel. It's a little bit bigger than I was expecting it, looking at the ones in Burnsco. But obviously there's two panels on there, two 12 volt panels, or linked or whatever. The challenge is going to be get it up there. I probably will get it up there alright. It just means I'm going to be very limited as to opening those ventilation hatches there. But then saying that, given that they're right underneath the panel, may be able to just leave them up for a bit of ventilation. I'm not going to have to worry about any water getting in there, because I'll be well covered by the panel. Solar regulator will be fine. I'm going to disconnect these, disconnect that. I bought some new cable to run from there to there. There's just enough cable coming with it to run it through the roof, so I'm going to need to pull it down and set it up, and then hook it straight into there, and I'll have some fittings and rings to put it on there. So that's the plan now, is to get that set up there, because that poor old existing one's only charging at about 21 volts, and that's why the batteries are now down to 21 volts. They're sitting there not doing anything. There's obviously a little bit of leakage. I'm going to remove the cables for the Maxwell windlass. Ultimately I'll replace the cables and I'll run them off the starter bank. So let's get into it. I've got a couple of holes to fill, some brackets to shift, and hopefully we'll might manage to get it up there alright. I may need to make another couple of aluminium brackets to help support it as well, but initially we'll get it up before it we look at where we need to be going with it. Just avoid any issues. I'll take that out of there for the moment. Yeah, off. No, it's popped through the top. Highly efficient, wasn't it? Bloody rubbish. Right, I'll put this camera down and grab that off the roof. Right, we'll take these off the back there and we'll find a spot, the best place to put them on the back of the other one, and get that up there and hopefully all screwed in, etc, etc. Okay, and the bracket's on. Probably needs to have a couple more nuts and bolts in it in due course. We'll get them in before winter, but that should be enough to support it for the moment. Now next job is to get it up on the roof. You see well how efficient the painting job was. Couldn't even bother taking it off and doing what needed to be done to paint it properly. So painted up basically for sale, and yeah, it's always a bit of a shame there's no prep. The other thing I've noticed all the way along here, this was apparently built by a professional boat builder. Absolute nonsense. It hasn't been done properly there. There's a hole in there, rock getting in there and here, so that's another job. I'm going to have to get in there and sort that out. Absolute nonsense. I suppose professional boat builders, my ass. Right, not ideal with the overhang, but I've managed to get it pretty much into the same location the previous one was. The important thing is the length of cable down there. I need to have enough to run down to the solar regulator inside there. So you can sort of see it in the window through the above, so that's quite good. No one's going to hit the head on that. I can keep an eye on what's going on up there, so it's not too bad. So the next thing I might do is I may just run those holes through and drill a new hole for those things and fill those other ones up with some epoxy. Right, the other thing I probably need to do is do something about those, resealing those. I've got some sealant, or potentially I've got some couple of cable glands. I might have a look and see whether they would be relevant for this. Well, I drilled them out in anticipation putting the cable glands through, being these ones here, and they're not long enough. So what I'll have to do, I'll set it all up, I'll use some proper sealant in there until I get a couple of longer ones, and I'll come back and redo the job. Also may need to bring down some stainless steel bolts as well. I'm going to try and get the screws lined up again, but yeah, it's going to be pretty much attached to the, and I think some bolts will probably be better with some washers on the inside. There's a bigger panel, there's a lot more stress on it when the wind blows, so I'll get it all set up for the moment and then bring down some bits and pieces as I know what I need, and get it sorted properly. Okay, self-tapping screws, so need to just go and get a slightly bigger drill bit, I think. Let's try that one there because it just needs to start. And the pocket, so you can go through the wash later on. It's always good to have stuff to go through the wash like that to jam the washing machine pump up.
and have to pull it all to bits. Right, let's hope there's enough bite on that now. And the other thing I need to do as well is like bring some stuff back down, is get some sealant in these and around these threads as well. Right. Right, back down to bloody Burnsko. Just got some hardware. I've decided to put some stainless steel 316 stainless steel bolts, washers and that through there to hold it down. There's a fair bit of wind down here and that panel may take off if it's not held properly, so let's go up there and get that sorted. Brackets on, put some nuts and bolts through there with some washers. It's fairly rigid, fairly sturdy. I don't think it's going to come off in a hurry. There, and I've managed to get it just far enough forward and in place there so I can still open the hatches, which is good. And the other thing I'm going to have to do there is some cable glands on. I'm just going to put some tape over it for now because I need to get into the town to get the appropriate size ones long enough to go through the ply roof and seal up. I don't really want to have to dig out silicon out of there to do it, so I'll just cover it up with some tape and hopefully it'll keep it nice and dry inside. Now the funny thing was, I went down to Burnsko, bought the bought the panel, took it home, unwrapped it, brought it down, brought it out here, then had to shoot down and get some bolts, so I did that, some washers, various sizes, just to make sure that if one was a bit close to a beam or something, I had a smaller one to go on instead of the bigger one. So I did that, drilled through, put them in. While I was down there, I forgot to get the nuts. I thought, well, okay, well that's all well and good, go back, get the nuts. Got 5 nuts in case I dropped one over the side. Came back, started to put them on and sort them out, and they were the wrong nut. So obviously metric or imperial thread instead of one or the other. And to go back down again and get the appropriate nuts. So done that, that's now bolted down. The next job will be to cut the cable. I'm going to use the same size cable from the solar regulator to the batteries, disconnect the Maxwell windlass, because when I reinstall that I'll do that with some bigger cable as suggested, and run it off the engine bank. Now the engine bank's still well up at 24.8 volts. Despite running and being starting the engine a number of times out of the day, so that's holding a charge. For some reason these have dropped back to what that little panel was actually putting into them, which was about 21 volts. So mystery solved, other than the fact that I would actually like the engine charging both banks as well. However, I can make those relevant inquiries about the alternator and do that in due course. So I just need to protect these new batteries and make sure that I've got some power. The other thing I'll do too, once it's hooked up, once it's all working properly, I'll reconnect to the 24 12 volt converter. Right, so let's get into it. Right, put those there to go on, and with some shrink wrap. Fortunately I don't have any red shrink wrap to stick over it for the positive. I'll have a bit of a hunt around and see what I can find. It's there, shrink wrapped on. I'll put a bit of red tape on it too. In the meantime, I can slide a bit of red shrink wrap over the top of that in due course. So there, do that up, run that up to there, cut it off and get it installed. Tighten up and tighten down. There, let's flick those off and connect the panel. Hooked up, 24.4 volts it appears coming in off the panel. I think I'll check that in a minute with a tester. Let's see how it's all going. 24.5. Alright, 24. So 24.6. See. Alright. Seems to be doing 24.7. It seems to be doing the trick. We'll 12.1. That's climbing as well, which is good. Yeah, batteries are showing at 12.4 already, so that's interesting. It's a good start. So 24.8 volts. This is already up to showing about 24 volts going in there. Yeah, it's doing well. It seems to have maybe solved the problem. We'll see how that goes as we tickle along. I might just put some cable ties around that to hold it all together. Right, 24.8 volts possibly coming in. 29 point. And that's the float level. 7 volts. Shut off there at load coming off at. So what I want is the load, any load that's coming off that to stop at about maybe 23. Okay, so 24 12 volt converter reconnected, working. 24.5 volts. I assume that that's what it's charging at, or maybe that's what's in the battery. I'm a little bit unsure. I'll have to do a little bit of research, but I thought that it was charging like that with the last one, but it wasn't. It was clearly what was in the batteries. Right. Just come down the next day to check to see how the battery levels are after the installation of the new 260 watt solar panel. I must say though that I probably need to change the charge controller. There's a PW something in MMPT. Apparently MMPT is a much superior charge controller than the cheap ones. They're a little bit more expensive, but the good news is because they're 24 volt, I can go for a cheaper charge controller, particularly if I'm going to a Victron one, which is what I'm going to do. They're a smart controller and much better for cloudy conditions. They're about 25 to 30% more efficient in charging, and they're just overall much better. Well, there we are. The batteries are up 25.1 volts, even with this PW whatever controller, the cheap one. So I'm going to confirm that now. It's really good to see. We'll see what's going on. Oh, there's a neighbour coming in. Why Piata? Great old boat. Beautiful boat. I was just running around looking for the volt meter, but unfortunately I took it home to check the old battery that I took out of my boy's smaller boat. We completely flattened it and I thought it was dead. I recharged it up using my new battery charger, and I wanted to see whether it was holding a charge after not being charged for probably nearly a month. It was still showing at 12.8 volts, so it's not stuffed, and it has obviously been reconditioned by the battery charger, which has that mode on it, so it was a good purchase. Anyway, don't have it here, but all I can look at there is go 25.1 volts. That's obviously what the battery is reading. Let's have a look down here. No, I don't know about that. It's still showing as red, as opposed to green. So I don't quite know what's going on there. 24.7. Well, I think that I might need to bring the voltmeter down to have a check to see what's actually in the battery, but yeah, still not showing up as green on. Although in saying that, I think also that these batteries need to be charging at 28.8 volts, so 14.4 volts for a 12 volt battery, twice that for a 24 volt battery bank. 25 something volts is not good. It's really not going to be much of a charge into the batteries. It's trickle, so I probably do need to upgrade the solar controller and get a little bit better upfront charging. I think there's a lot of wasted voltage on the panels, or from the panels. As I understand it, with these types of controllers, they match the voltage in the battery, and you do lose a lot of your wattage from the panel if you don't have the appropriate charge controller. So anyway, the charge controller that I'm looking at is probably about $103 to $129. It's a Victron. The other good thing is I need a smaller one, so a 15 amp one will be fine. It keeps costs down, so it's probably a pretty worthwhile investment. Anyhow, it's looking like it's going to start to rain. I think we've got a bit of rain forecast. I'm down here having a look at that, so it's basically, I don't know, it tells me that the batteries, if it's to be believed, is the batteries are at 24.4 volts. These ones here are at 24.8, but they're shown as green. Yeah, I don't quite know what's going on here. So the next step will be to try to sort out the charge controller. If that doesn't work, I might need to get these batteries tested, because yeah, I'm not very impressed with that. And I just came out here and just realised the navigation lights were on. Now, I haven't touched those, I don't think. I certainly didn't get close enough to knock it accidentally on. I would have had to be right and close here, so I don't know how that managed to turn it on. Maybe if I watch the footage I might see that I did. Might be why things are taking a little bit longer to sort out. Although I would have thought I would have seen that as I came in and took the lock off the door. It'll be up to 24.5 volts, so assuming that that's the battery level. Let's see what happens when I turn it back on again. 24.4. $24.3. So it's basically been dropping from 25, so I wonder whether that actually was on. And while the Z's back up to 24.4, even though it's cloudy, oh, that was really quite bizarre. I don't know what's going on. Oh, I don't know. I must have knocked it on. I would have seen that when I walked to the boat. But the navigation lights were on. I said, yeah, no, I would have seen it. I must have knocked it on while I was piddling around in here. Well, howdy-ho. 29.5 volts in the battery, so it's taken a while. 29.5 volts. So let's check the batteries and let's just see how they are actually going, both bang. Right, 28.79 volts in that battery. Was up much better. It was only about 22 the other day. And the engine bank's 24.84. So that's heartening. I'm quite pleased to see that amount of charge going in off the panel. So clearly there's heaps of juice being generated there. Oh, hi-ho, just down checking the wee boat. Down for a couple of days. Going to run the engine for a bit. Net on. So much quieter with that floor down. I didn't think it was starting for a second, but it makes quite a bit of difference. 9.6 volts in the house bank. So what I need to do is work out now how to get the excess power from here into there, keep those house bank batteries. So we're going to check those in a minute and see what's going on. Just tested the engine start batteries, 24.63 volts after starting. We'll see how they whether they lift at all as the engine runs for a bit. I've still suspicions that the alternator is not working at capacity. A beautiful evening. Got the wee Flossie monster down here with me. She loves being on the boat. Been a bit stuck in the house, so she loves coming out on the boat, although she can be a bit of a bloody nuisance. We'll come down for an evening fish. A beautiful evening, love it. Right, just run her in gear for a bit. Working. Hey Floss. Hey Floss monster. House bank batteries, 13.8 volts in each one, which is good. I've just dipped down the charge to 28.8 volts, or a little bit lower. I just started feeling I might be slightly overcharging.
On my way back out, I can see there's a bit of a jellyfish bloom again, and as the currents and winds directions tend to push them to certain berths. Right here they are, and I just couldn't help myself. They absolutely fascinate me. Hey, that brings us to the end of another episode. Hey, look, I'm really sorry. I've developed a bit of a fixation with voltage and batteries and solar and all that sort of thing. But I haven't actually enjoyed researching it and finding out a little bit more about it and working out where to from here. I'm sorry I'm reusing a lot of footage for the ends and beginnings of these episodes. I do actually have a friend who is going to come and do some training with a drone and get some good footage. This will mean I'll have some different footage to start and end the episodes. It may even inspire me to look at purchasing my own drone. Anyhow, as usual, like, share, subscribe. Love you to do that. Reality is does make a rat's ass worth of difference to me personally, other than this mythical beast of a algorithm apparently that seems to exist, that people tell me about, and may recommend my channel and episodes to somebody else logging in to YouTube on a wet, horrible day or a weekend when they've got nothing better to do, particularly over winter, and end up watching it as a result. So, thanks. See you next time. Remember to get out there and do it before it does it to you.